Well, good evening and welcome back to the Friday night preview show live on the Seasiders podcast. We're here to preview Blackpool's Sky Bet League One fixture away at Portsmouth, which will take place on the 20th of February 2021. So it's great to see so many of you already watching the stream. So a big, huge welcome from myself. But we will get underway now, and we'll bring in our first guest, which you all know by now. It is Tom Main. Tom, welcome back to the Friday night preview show. How are things with you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Long day at work, and it's been a while due to postponements, but it's good to be back and speaking to everyone.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we're ready to get back to it. Apology if you can hear some rain hitting the top of the conservatory in Fielding Towers, but we'll be working on that. But we also have Freddie Webb, who is a co-host on the PO4 the Pompey podcast. I'll bring Freddie in now. Freddie, welcome to the Seasiders podcast. How are things with you, mate?
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Things have been going great, to be honest. A lot of good stuff in my personal life going on, even with all of COVID and stuff. But yeah, it's been really good, and I'm delighted to be on.
Definitely. We're excited to have you on. And before it was trying to figure out which member of the podcast is going to join us, but we're great to have the best one on the Seasiders podcast with me and Tom. What we do, Freddie, at the start of every show is we get our guests to tell us a little bit about their background, how they got support in their team. And I don't know where you want to start, but how did things get going with you? Is it just a matter of family taking to the games or a friend?
I've got a bit of a different story about supporting Portsmouth. My dad was a huge Pompey fan. He was born there, grew up down south. I was born and bred in York, actually, so one of the few northern Portsmouth supporters, that, if there are any. So I grew up in the north of England, and for me, I think probably one of the reasons why Portsmouth connected me so much, probably my dad. And aside from that, it's a bit of a different feeling when you can. I think we would only go into Fratton Park and watch a game. Our first game was in 2009. Which is quite a while, and then going all the way down there maybe once a year to see them at Fratton Park probably made my connection a bit stronger, because it was always a special occasion to go to that ground. Then started going to northern away games, been to Blackpool 2 or 3 times now, and I really like the ground actually compared to some of the others, compared to that one on the metro station near you, which I won't mention.
So it kind of, we're obviously a big person on the podcast, but how did you get involved working with the PO4 podcast then? Was it a matter of just reaching out, and obviously your background in journalism, which you were telling me before you just graduated from university?
Yeah, I just graduated my master's recently, which has been very good. Bit of a strange year to be graduating and doing all of that stuff, but it went as well as it could have done. I started writing for Pompey News Now, which is a fan blog associated with the podcast. 2 years ago, I started writing beforehand. Hugh saw my work, he liked it, and then I came on to a show. My first episode was after losing both legs of the playoffs against Sunderland, so that was a great show to start off on. And then I've been on intermittently ever since, and now one of the co-hosts of it. So it's been great, to be honest, apart from the playoff losing.
Well, Blackpool fans aren't used to that, so we don't really know what their feelings you've gone through. But I saw the other day that you were celebrating 100 episodes on the podcast. It must have been a great feeling for you and the rest of the gang.
Yeah, it was big, very big. Hugh deserves the most credit out of all of them. He's the main host. He works his absolute socks off. Full-time job, does this in his spare time, has all the connections that you could possibly want. We've had ex-players on there, interviewed players such as David Norris, Lamana Lualua, ex-Blackpool, from what I remember. Had Johnny Ertel on the 100th episode. It's all been great, and it's a very big and amazing milestone to be on.
No, it definitely is. I'm sure me and Tom will celebrate 100 Friday night preview shows when we get to that stand. Apparently, just a comment coming here before we move on to the, I was going to say hot topic, but it's not. Ray Gregson said, I think I spoke to you outside Bloomfield Road during a boycott. I'm not sure if that's you or not, but we'll see.
To me, well, I went to, I think this was 2 seasons ago now. I went to obviously Blackpool away at Bloomfield Road, stressing to my dad not to buy anything because it was still owned by the Oystons at that time. And it was probably the most surreal away game I've ever been to, because I was expecting, there'll be some sort of like proper fans end. And then I walked in and it was just dotted dotted seats all the way around, clusters of supporters, and it was incredibly strange. But thankfully, I went to the away game the following season, and that was when the stadium was full, and it was an excellent atmosphere there, and I could tell how much the change of ownership has helped the club, and supporting a club whose ownership has been horrendous. I can sympathise with that.
Definitely can do, and both trusts and the fans have done their jobs to get our clubs kind of back within the community. So that's a huge positive for both Portsmouth and Blackpool. But we were joking a bit on air about the seriousness of the news that got announced on the 15th of Feb regarding Kenny Jackett. I must admit, before I actually read the statement and hearing breaking news, I thought it was a kind of a serious illness, to only find out that it's an operation on his right forearm. So I don't know, Freddie, if you can elaborate a little bit on the news.
It was to remove a mole on his right forearm. So I assume it's precautionary, because obviously he'd have to go into hospital and so on. And then then obviously with all the COVID precautions, if he brings that to the players, the squad could be an outbreak and that sort of thing. I assume it's completely precautionary, even though he's an older man. I'm sure he's fine. He was on the phone to the assistant manager for the entire of Tuesday night, so his influence is still there. And I think the only reason why it was blown out of proportion for it was a journalist apparently got wind of the story early and published it, which made it sound a lot worse than it was.
Yeah, that's before I even read the news article on the website. I thought, oh God, I hope he's okay. Still hope he's okay, and there's no implications of going in, because obviously it's a serious time. But hopefully Jackett's back on the sideline in the not too distant future. But how big of a miss will he be, Freddie? And he's a manager that's been around. He's taken clubs up. He's been at Portsmouth for a few years now. He's going to be a big miss, but it's an opportunity now for your backroom staff to have an impact themselves on the Portsmouth team that currently sit fourth in the League One table. Yeah,
it'd be a bit strange. This is Kenny Jackett's fourth season, his final season, final year of his contract, which you don't say about many managers nowadays. And yeah, it will be big for his backroom staff. The influence will still be there. I think the only thing which would be weird for the players is not having him there, actually being there, present. That might change some things with mentality and so on. Because Joe Gallen, as the assistant manager, he's always been an assistant. He hasn't been a proper manager to my knowledge. So yeah, it might be a bit strange for the players. I don't think that was the main reason for the defeat on Tuesday, though. But we'll move on into that later on.
Yeah, we certainly will. Tom, on the flip side of the news regarding Kenny Jackett, could that be a positive for Blackpool going to this game, or do you think that Portsmouth are that professional that they will just get the job done if they can do on the weekend?
I think most teams, you'd like to think, are professional enough to know what they're doing on the pitch and push to get that win, especially at home. But I think evidently, if you haven't got your managers in the dressing room at half time and before the game, then it's a bit out of rhythm and routine, and it's got to have some influence on the match. But you'd like to think the assistant is good enough. That's why he's an assistant, and I don't think it'll be too much of an advantage. But we'll see. We'll see.
We will see. Again, great to see so many comments flying in. If you're watching it on YouTube, share the link. If you're watching it on Twitter or Facebook, hit the share button so many people can join us. Again, the comments are great to bounce off throughout the show. So any topics we're talking about, do leave your thoughts and we'll bring you in the conversation. Freddie, I want to kind of start off with that game that you don't really want to talk about. Tuesday night saw Portsmouth lose their second game, I believe, on the road this season with a 3-1 defeat away at Bristol Rovers. Good start by your side with Marquise getting the opening goal, but slowly downhill from there, wasn't it? With 2 goals scored by Rovers in the first half and then a third goal in the third half. What went wrong in your view?
It was an abysmal result. You've probably all had games like this. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Marquis missed it, even though he scored the first goal. It was an excellent move by Byers, playing the through ball into Ryan Williams, low cross into the box to Marquis, who got between the two centre halves. It was an excellent goal. He missed 3 chances in that game, including the penalty right at the end, even though the game was dead by then. All the goals could have been prevented. All of them included defensive errors, and I'm not just saying that in a way that means that some people always say, "Oh, the defending is always bad." No, the defending was that bad. James Bolton missing an interception to let the striker through. Sean Raggett going up for the header, thinking no one was behind him, so headed it back across the penalty area, but the striker was just on his own at the back stick. And then Sean Raggett siving down another striker to give away the penalty for 3-1. And Portsmouth deserved nothing out of that game. It was dreadful. Change of formation to a 4-3-3. The players didn't look like they knew what they were doing, but mainly because Portsmouth aren't used to having that amount of possession. Portsmouth had, I think, about 65% possession off the top of my head, because usually they in normal circumstances, they play a 4-4-2. They usually play the 4-4-2. They started playing that a lot because they got very good results, and they press high, ravage teams to basically cause mistakes, and then use that excellent front four. So the front four is usually Ryan Williams on the right, Ronan Curtis on the left, John Marcus up front, and then someone like a Marcus Harness next to him as a striker. So they all attack very, very quickly. This game, they didn't do that. They didn't do the high press, mainly because they were scared of Bristol Rovers being very direct. And they simply couldn't change to the formation. I think the only one player to come out of that game with any credit was George Byers on loan from Swansea.
Yeah, it's interesting because whenever you think of a Pompey team, and as I was saying to you before, having worked in League One for the past 3 seasons, that whenever Pompey seem to get that one goal up away from home, that they seem to be able to shut up shop, put bodies behind the ball, and get teams on the counter-attack. You've got Naylor in midfield, who for me controls games, but just didn't happen on Tuesday. And as Cliff just said there, that he expects Pompey to have a reaction after Tuesday. And I'm guessing as a fan, and you'll be wanting to see the same from your side, won't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there has to be a reaction on Saturday, and I do expect a reaction from the players. I think the players do always give 110% on the pitch. There's no culture problems at Portsmouth about them not really wanting it enough. They all want to win games, and I could tell that from the way they play usually. And they'll be as frustrated and disappointed as all the fans are, because this has happened a lot under Kenny Jackett's tenure, where it's that one key game, that one key moment. No matter all the good runs, the historic records that they've broken, all the wins that they've got, at that one moment where they need to step up properly, they don't, and they fall to bits. And if Portsmouth beat Bristol Rovers with all the results that went their way, they'd be in the automatics by now.
Just going back to, you said there's a formation change. We've been in that situation a lot of this season. When we wanted to play 4-4-2, we've gone to 4-3-3, and we've lost games quite comfortably. And it's not good for the fans to have, to probably realise our best team is 4-4-2. Would that have come from Kenny Jackett, or would that have come from the assistant? Assumably, Kenny Jackett wanted to try something different against a counter-attacking Bristol Rovers side.
Apparently, Kenny Jackett was in contact with the backroom staff throughout the game, so I assume it came from him, or it was at least discussed between both of them. I think the reason why they went for the 4-3-3 is simply because they were scared of Bristol Rovers counter-attacking them. So they wanted an extra man in the midfield, and they knew they'd have a bit more possession, so they wanted to control the game a bit more. But the problem was the players were really panicky on the ball. So even though they weren't closed down very often, there was not a lot of movement. And they always wanted to go to the wide areas. And if a player didn't know what he wanted to do, Tom Naylor's usually very good, but he misplaced a lot of passes in this game, trying to go for the direct ball to the wing, which rarely worked. And I think that is one of the reasons why there was a drop in performance. But it's one of those games where everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong that game. Defensive errors, a system that didn't work, the players getting angry and frustrated and spending most of their time berating the referee in the second half. It was terrible.
I wonder if the referee would have squared up to him. I can't remember now. that would have been good, wouldn't it? I've never heard that before. No, I'm joking. Just a reaction to that. Well, let's go to a side point now, but I'll come to you, Tom, first before back to Freddie. What are your thoughts on that incident? Obviously, Alan Judge, who's at Ipswich now, must have said something to the referee for him to to react to that incident. Again, people are watching and get your comments in as well. It'd be interesting. But what are your thoughts? Because referees get so much abuse, don't they, from players and fans, that it could just take one thing. And in these circumstances now regarding COVID, that it maybe just got to the point anyway, I actually have to step in here.
So, yeah, I initially when I saw it, I said I'm a big fan of what he's done, because he was yes, the result helped, but when he was our when he was our referee against Wigan, I'm pretty sure he was anyway. I might be talking wrong, but every tackle that potentially was a foul he played on, and every single sort of 50-50 he let go, and he was letting the game flow as much as possible and letting the football be played and not stopping the game. So, I mean, he was a decent ref, and I think he's got, he's been in the military, he's served in Afghanistan as far as I'm aware. And at the end of the day, if he's been getting abuse, and with no fans, you would have heard the abuse more and more. And it got to that point where I think it was at breaking point. If Alan Judge has said something that out of line, it has reacted to it. I'm a big fan of them sticking up for themselves, because they get abuse from 24, 25, 26 people, the players, managers, everyone. And they have every right to probably come back at the players. He probably stepped out of line by putting his head towards Alan Judge's head, but I'm a big fan, for them to stick up for themselves and put players in line a bit, because they don't deserve to be abused and sworn at and whatever have you on the pitch. They should at some point have that sort of freedom to go to the players, enough's enough, I'm the referee and you'll respect me. Button him probably wouldn't have been the best sort of idea. But no, you don't see Alan Judge having to apologise for it. And that's what winds me up a little bit. So I don't know how you two feel about it, but
I'll step in before coming to Freddie. I think there was an article that if the referee did it again, he would be suspended for life. But someone who is racist to another player or something happens, that it's a few games ban, and it's probably a 60 grand fine. So it really does make you think a little bit, Freddie, that where's the game going? Rugby players respect the referee's decision, no matter what it is. That's final. What are your thoughts?
I agree with everything. I concur with everything that Tom has said about the referee. I do like seeing that. Referees don't deserve to be treated like that, even in a competitive environment. I mean, I get extremely frustrated when I play five-a-side, and I'm sure professional football does that, times that by 100. But still, the antiquated rules about him potentially getting suspended is a bit of a nonsense. You probably saw that all the time in the 80s, where referees would give a little bit to the players. I'd prefer it to Mike Dean's gesticulating anyway. So if I had to have a choice.
Wasn't the best referee in the world, early 2000s. He was the sort of, what's his name?
Kalina.
Yeah, that's it, Kalina. He used to push players.
Italian referee.
Shout at them, get in their face, get out, yellow card straight in their face. And I'm all for it. He got the best referee in the world for like 3 years in a row and refereed World Cup finals. And why is he in that position now? And Drysdale's been absolutely berated because he stuck up for himself versus, from what I understand, Alan Judge being a mouthy. Is a mouthy player, and he served our country and he's seen a lot worse than Alan Judge. So maybe he shouldn't have reacted in the way he did, but enough's enough sometimes. And just for me, the headbutt was a bit out of line, or the butt towards the player was a bit out of line. But I'm all for it.
Yeah, Gareth White, who's a regular on the Friday Night Preview Show and the other podcast, I should say. But he said, would love to have 5 minutes alone in an empty room with Lee Mason and a baseball bat mind. Was he the referee for, I want to say it wasn't United, was it? Is it United? I can't remember what the referee was for that game.
He's, like most Premier League referees, he's made a few clangers, hasn't he?
I'd have to find out.
You want to play baseball in a room with him?
What goes on behind that door, Gareth? We won't leave it. It's great to see that the Blackpool head coach, Coach Critchley, is joined us after some shocking Wi-Fi down south. So that's great to have him on the show. But Tom, we'll move on a little bit. Obviously, that sidetracked with the referee stuff. But Blackpool got back to winning ways on Tuesday. Not the prettiest of performances. I think most people will agree who are listening and watching this live. But a Sully Kai goal was enough in the first half to seal all 3 points. Briefly, what did you make of that performance on Tuesday?
Excited by the first half performance. I think seeing us attack probably 4 or 5 times, and I know you were there, so you would have seen it sort of in the flesh. But sort of Nice comment, Jake. I think watching it, you saw a bit of sort of how we wanted to play, and I wanted a reaction for the Blackpool players. Kai stepping up a little bit more, and he was a lot more attacking and working with Husband 10 times better. And getting how we didn't score sort of 2 minutes before that with Dougal's shot, and then a good save on the keeper, and the goal was coming, and eventually I'm glad a minute later it came, because if we didn't, then Rochdale had enough chances to put that game to bed. Personally, second half came, Marv's is injured, another hamstring, and it rocked us way more than I think it should have. And I think they had like 60% possession in the end, and don't get me wrong, we weren't sort of punished by it, and they didn't have any clear-cut chances, and definitely shouldn't have had 3 clear-cut penalties like the manager said, but they definitely should have scored, and they needed to turn that possession into goals, and we got let off by that. So I'm not inspired by that performance on Tuesday, but saying that, we did keep a clean sheet against the league's top goal scorers, but we only scored 1 against the league's defence also. So I'll take the 1-0, and we build on it tomorrow. I think we need to sort of lay a marker down going into the busy period we've got ahead.
Yeah, I was reading a few comments out here. Cliff's got one in saying Rochdale was a game of 2 halves. First half, we played some sublime one-touch football. Second half, on the other hand, was abysmal. And Gareth again has said the Rochdale game we won, kept a clean sheet, got 3 points, and played pretty poorly in the second half, but dug deep and got the result. And that's a sign of a good team. And I was going to say something very similar in the lines of that. I think it showed a different mentality in the side, that we had to adapt. We put a left-footed player at right centre half, and it does take the balance of the side in that. So that was a pleasing thing, that we dealt with the pressure, and I just thought in previous games teams would have scored against us in those moments, but it never did. And also, Tom, I think the fact of not playing for it a few weeks would have had a bit of an impact, because I think James Husband said in his post-match notes or interview that we haven't played for a few games. We were psyched up, we were prepared. The Burton game was 2 minutes before the kickoff was going to start. So to go from the hype of warming up to nearly playing twice, and then this happening, it's just a great feeling for the squad, just to get back to winning ways and putting games that have not played behind them now.
Yeah, for me, like I said, I've reacted a bit, not harshly. I think the performance is frustrating, but yeah, you're right. 2 games out, 3 games out, and after the Ipswich match, it was great to see that resilience from the team. And I put it on Twitter just, I think, the next day. There's a few sort of Blackpool fans that, and including myself, that berated Husband this season. His performance Tuesday was standout for me, and moving into centre back, he always looked reassured. And I've said, and I don't know if you agree with me, Sam, but start of the season, 2 red cards, he was making silly challenges, he was going for balls it was never going to win, and every single time he plays now, he thinks about the tackle, he thinks about what he's going to do with the ball, and the only thing he needs to work on is the aerial sort of threat when the ball comes over. I say threat, but any times the ball's over his head, he looks a bit out of sorts, but he was outstanding on Tuesday, and it's difficult to say now whether you start Garbutt over him tomorrow, but Garbutt arguably is a better player, but by every stretch of imagination, better delivery, and maybe a better player overall. But you can't drop a player after that performance and what he put in Tuesday. So, the break wouldn't have done us any good. And like I said, we build on it tomorrow and see what sort of performance we put out.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Hubby had to adapt, didn't he? Not having Ballard on the subs bench, really. I'd say probably just in the moment where you don't want the centre half to get injured, which Marv's has been superb. So. It's going to be different whether Ballard comes in tomorrow. We're unsure. I think he might be. He's travelled or he's trained, so that'll be good news. And again, I think you've got to play Hubby. I think he's a player that is experienced enough. As Garbutt, I'm not saying Garbutt's not experienced, but I think just Hubby gives that a bit more defensive reassurance. Not from the first few games that you alluded to this season. But no, it's going to be difficult for critics, isn't it, Tom, to pick a side now that have won but has to make those changes due to injuries.
Yeah, Ballard comes straight in. I think it'd be criminal to put Husband at centre back to begin with. We need someone to support Thornley, and Marv's was that guy. He's been player of the season for me so far in terms of how he's improved. Arguably a couple of other players up there, such as Maxwell, but for me, someone come from League Two and to step up the way he has been sensational, and has actually led Thornley through these games. So Ballard for me is a natural leader, someone who has to come in. And that's probably your only change. I think we'll see what the sort of viewers think as well. But yeah, Ballard's going to start for me.
Yep. Before we move on to why we'll hear the game tomorrow, Freddie, what have your thoughts been on Blackpool? I know you've watched them in recent years, and you would have watched the reverse fixture on the December the 1st of 2020. What have your thoughts been on Blackpool? Because you see the stats are a bit hit and miss, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are on the Seasiders.
Yeah, well, if I compare this season to last season, they play completely differently. I went to the 1-1 draw at Bloomfield Road, and it was quite obvious how Simon Grayson's Blackpool wanted to play. They wanted to shuffle the ball really quickly to the wing, get the cross into Armand Nandouye, and hopefully he scores. And that's basically all they did. But I'm very impressed with how Blackpool have played, considering the sheer squad rotation they had in the summer. What was it, 17 players?
19, I think it was. It came to in the end, yeah.
It was for any team to perform how they do in certain games, especially when a lot of them are talented players, but League Two players as well. Considering how they've played in certain games, I think they've done a very good job. Statistically, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league. They've only conceded 26 goals, and with a expected goals against 25.51, so they're not even lucky on that point of view. So they're a very strong defensive side. And in the game, I'm trying to remember the score. I should have checked beforehand. I think it was 2-0, wasn't it? Or 1-0?
Which one? The reverse fixture? 1-0 Blackpool, yeah.
1-0 Blackpool, yeah, exactly. Again, I think the reason why Portsmouth lost that game was Blackpool won the midfield very, very well and counter-attacked with pace. Especially I think Yates and Hamilton. I think Hamilton was playing. He was exceptional up front. It's a shame that he's injured for you, because I think if players like that are still playing for you regularly, I think it would be a different season. Counter-attacked very well, but more importantly, won the battle in midfield, which Portsmouth didn't have in the entirety of that last game.
Yes, interesting you say that. I think we did the reaction to that match, and we were all on a big buzz because I think you had one shot the whole game on target.
Portsmouth created nothing, absolutely nothing that game.
I think did we question whether Portsmouth were poor or it was Blackpool's best performance of the season? I think we decided it was Blackpool's best performance of the season, and we haven't won many games comfortably this season, and that was probably one where I think we're probably going to hold out here. And there's always a risk with Portsmouth that you were going to score, but that was probably one of the only games where I've gone, we've played that well tonight. We deserve everything we've got. And the point you make about midfield is very key. On the flip side to that, Dougal and about 6 or 7 other players have had COVID since, and he's been off pace. He's still been a half decent player, but he's been nowhere near to the standard he was when we won 8 out of 9 games. So we'll see when he gets back to full fitness. But credit to Dougal, he's come back from COVID and he's played most games 60 to 70 minutes, 80 minutes. And he's never stopped trying. So we'll see how the midfield holds out tomorrow. I think we need to make a change in the midfield. I said earlier that would be my only change. Virtue would probably come out as well because he's not a right winger. But we'll see tomorrow. If you're up for it and we're lacking in midfield, then you could feast off that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be, again, a key battle in midfield when the Blackpool go for the 4 and Pompey pack at that. It'll be interesting to see. But like I said, we're all here for the game tomorrow, 20th of Feb, down at Fratton Park, 3 p.m. kickoff for those interested or not got the iFollow pass. That's I'll say British Standard Time or GMT. But Tom, I'll come to Freddie first because Tom was just speaking there. How are you feeling ahead of the game? You come in on the back of a defeat. I think you've lost 3 league games in the last, say, 4 weeks. But since that, like I said, you've been up there all season. You're 4th in the league table. But how are you feeling ahead of tomorrow's game, Freddie?
Hit and miss, mainly because the manner of the loss against Bristol Rovers and the fact that they changed the setup. They might, Joe Gallum or Kay Jackie, whoever decided the setup, might be stubborn and go with that setup again, the 4-3-3. Or it's a tough one because they could either go with the 4-4-2, the pressing, high-intensity 4-4-2, and be vulnerable on the counter-attack, or then go with the 4-3-3 with Byers in midfield, try and control the play a bit more. But that setup was so bad in the game on Tuesday night that I think they shouldn't. I think they play much better in the 4-4-2, and it's not because they just have two strikers. It's just the shape and the philosophy of why they play that way. I think there's going to be some changes in the back four and the midfield, I think, for Saturday. And I think the problem is that recently the form's been very up and down. Portsmouth's game against Charlton was very comfortable. The game against Plymouth was very comfortable, but it was just two defensive errors that led to Luke Jeffcott scoring 2 goals. But then obviously you have the Bristol Rovers game and the horrible game against Hull where he lost 4-0 or two own goals. Fans don't know where they are with this side. It's very strange. They're a very good attacking side, and if they get the first goal most of the time without any defensive errors, they stay on top of teams and often control the game. Not really in midfield. You don't see them have a lot of possession, but they're always on top, pressing and forcing mistakes in midfield and from the back four. So that's where they usually get a lot of their success from. Defensively, they're above average, but not by much.
You say average, but the amount of games that I'm looking on here where you've either
the 6 clean sheets in a row,
them, and I was at the Fleetwood game doing some photography work at a comfortable win there with Marquise getting the goal in I think it was the first half. I'll just check. 16 minutes in the game. Obviously, AFC Wimbledon 4-0 win. Won't talk about the next two, which 4-0 defeat at home to Hull and then against Lincoln. But like I said, when I said at the start of the show that when Portsmouth tend to go ahead in games, they've got the experienced players in the likes of Naylor and other players like that to kind of keep the door shut. But just like I said, it didn't happen recently with 2 goals against Plymouth, who are having an okay season. But again, it's going to be interesting. I think who gets the first goal tomorrow, Freddie, is going to be probably go and win the game, I would have thought.
The reason why I say that Portsmouth are an above average defensive side, they're not a bad defensive side. I look at expected goals a lot, which I'm not sure if many people do, but I looked at the expected goals against that Portsmouth have, which is 33.38 just the last time I checked, and they've only conceded 26 goals. And that difference is the 3rd or 4th highest in the league. So in reality, and I could see it when watching, they're not the most stable of back four. The 4-4-2 does lead to that, obviously, because usually you don't have another midfielder sitting. I think Charlie Daniels coming into the side at left back, he brings so much to the play going forward. But if he gets caught out of position, he's 36, so he's quite. So he needs to be covered a lot of the time. And I think the reason why Portsmouth haven't conceded the goals they have is because of Craig McGilvery, the goalkeeper, arguably the best goalkeeper in the league. So.
Second.
And the reason why we argue about this sort of stuff on the pod a lot is it's a fine margin season. This is Cane Jacket's last year on his contract. This is the final season with this set of players. Portsmouth have about 11 players out of contract in the summer.
Wow.
So it's classic boom or bust. And with the previous playoff record and seeing how Cane Jacket sets up his teams in the playoffs, fans have no trust in that whatsoever. So essentially, it's top 2 or Portsmouth go, but Portsmouth a bust, then new manager and a few new players. But going forward, Portsmouth are still one of the better teams in the division. They're an offensive team, and I think they need to stay to those strengths, I think.
Tom, what do you think's happened? Obviously, years we've not gone to games and seen us play against Portsmouth, but that's, like I said before, that Stern team, but as Freddie alluded to there, they get to the playoffs or near about and they just flap it. In some respects, probably the best way of putting it. They get themselves in a good situation to go up. They go and try and win trophies at Wembley, but they can't seem to get past the line. I don't know what your views are on that.
Funny old game, isn't it? Our neighbours down the road are used to that, and I think when you get into that position, it's just one of those things that happen in football. There can't be any rhyme or reason to it apart from the fact that you, with all due respect, you literally bottle it. You know, it takes a really strong side to be good in the playoffs. And I think I don't know. Every time Blackpool have been in the playoffs, there's been a togetherness about the team, specifically the Premier League ones. And, we went and done it the next year after, or 2 years later, sorry. And yes, it wasn't meant to be, but we still absolutely played out of our skin, should have won the game. And you need to be built differently for the occasion. Some people say play the game, not the occasion. And if Portsmouth just find themselves in a position every time where they just see themselves on the wrong end. They've got the quality there. There's no doubt about it. But who knows? For me, Kenny Jackett should be a manager where you get an automatic promotion. I'm not saying he's the world's best manager, but he's got enough experience to coach a team of Portsmouth's quality to the top two in League One. And if you get into the playoffs, it's usually the team that finished 6th or 5th that won it a lot more than the team that have just missed out. And we know building momentum really helps. And if you find yourself on the last game of the season in the playoffs, you just snuck in or you just stay there on the last day, you're really up for the playoffs. And players, no doubt in my mind, they won't want to play 3 more games after just missing out on automatic. And maybe it's a bit of that, I don't know. But who knows? They should be top 2 for me, Portsmouth, with the quality they've got.
Freddie, you seem like a stats kind of guy. Cliff got this comment in. Spent many years in Portsmouth. His dream playoff final will be Blackpool versus Portsmouth. What are the chances of that? Because Blackpool, if they can get on a bit of a winning streak like they did earlier in the season, they could really find themselves towards the playoff place. I think if they win the games in hand, they're only 3 points off or something like that. I'll have to double check. But a great question there, and it would be a fantastic final with the blue and the tangerines in opposite ends of Wembley, if fans could go.
Yeah, potentially. We're still, but fans, and myself included, still aren't sure if Portsmouth will get top 2. This season is so competitive with all the teams that are up there. And again, small margins, it could be a one-off game. There's a difference between Portsmouth finishing 2nd or 3rd. I'm leaning towards the fact that I think Portsmouth might be a playoff team again. If so, I'm going to have to watch probably at least 2 more terrible playoff games, but we'll see. In terms of where Blackpool are, whenever I noticed the highlights and I looked up the stats afterwards, Blackpool simply don't take their chances. Yeah. And I'm not sure if that's is that a thing.
I would say so. I think Tom might agree or disagree, but I think on Northampton, when we just won that game, I won it 2-0, but that game could have been dead and buried with chances taken. I think Tuesday's game against Rochdale, games coming thick and fast, as they get mixed up and bundled as one. But again, on Tuesday, I thought maybe Blackpool could have been 2 goals to the good before Rochdale really pumps up the pressure. But yeah, I completely agree with you there.
I don't know, maybe the viewers can tell me different, but I don't remember a game where we've missed 6 or 7 really key chances, or say any key chances.
I'm not saying 6 or 7, but I think in terms of maybe having 1 or 2 to really kill off the game, they don't take those chances.
I think the question is, do we create enough? Some games, yes. Some games we've played that badly that I don't even think we're going to have a shot. And I think our early form suffered from that, because when we played teams like Wimbledon and we had home games against Lincoln and stuff, which we just had so many chances throughout the matches that you just think, how have you not shot? How have you not hit the target? And how have you not found the formation that's worked for us? And the moment we did, and we beat the Fleetwoods 1-0, we beat Portsmouth 1-0, and I don't think we created enough to win games. I think if we created enough, we'd score a lot more. I think Tuesday was how the Dougal shot didn't go in, and that melee in the box didn't go in. But 2 minutes later, we've scored a goal. But other than that, second half, we haven't done anything. And it's taken Yates against Northampton to score one of the world's best goals, or season's best goals you're ever going to see. To get the second goal against Northampton, who, quite frankly, should have scored 2 goals that night to maybe even go ahead or equalise. We haven't done enough to win games, and I've said this many times. Apart from Wigan and maybe Portsmouth at home, even though that was 1-0 Fleetwood away, you're probably talking 3 games out of the 23 we've played. We haven't been in the position where you've gone, we're winning today, because you always think we're going to concede and not create enough. And immediately before the match, when we're talking about Bristol Rovers, they should have been 5-1 up 60 minutes into the game. And, they missed a penalty. They missed 2 1-on-1s. They missed a shot across goal. A couple of crosses across goal, pass backs, which they intercepted. They've only just got the win. So I think defensively, in some games we've been at half time specifically, especially against Ipswich. I think one of the worst teams we'll come against in the first half. We've just not done enough. We don't create enough for me, and we miss Hamilton so much that we haven't had that outlet all season, and hopefully Kai can come back tomorrow and build on Tuesday.
Sorry, Freddie, you're on a roll and I interrupted, but just to read a few comments out here. You might have seen them on the screen already, but for those who are listening to the audio version, Mike says Blackpool just simply don't create enough chances. Our problem, Stephen says, our problem is that we struggle to get on top when going a goal down. Again, Steve says, I don't think we create enough. Remember, under Ollie, Ian Holloway, we're creating chances at plenty. Completely agree with that. Exciting to watch, no doubt. And I'll finish off with Mick's comment here. So we don't convert enough of our possession into good goal-scoring opportunities. When we do create chances, we generally do go and put them away. He's put that on a separate message. But it's interesting, Freddie, what you were saying before about the stats, because you can watch the game and stuff, but actually it depends if people are stat people. I'm quite interested in them. But like I said, if you are creating chances and it's just not hitting in the final third and the goal's going in, at some point it will turn around, won't it?
Yeah, usually it always evens out. I'm not entirely a stats person. I just compare them to what I watch. I do both, which everybody who looks at stats should look at both. I've got the expected goal stuff for Blackpool if you want it.
Go on, put us in our misery. Put us in our misery.
29 goals this season. If people don't know what expected goals is, literally it's just a metric just to define how the quality of a shooting chance. So let's say Sully Kaikai's 1-on-1 and he's got a centre half next to him on his shoulder, on his strong foot, and then somebody will look at that, compare it to thousands, even hundreds of thousands of other examples of that similar thing happening, and then define it to a number. So in terms of expected goals, Blackpool should have scored 37.32 goals, 37.32, and that differential's really big. So it means that essentially Blackpool, you could look at that and go, Blackpool aren't creating enough chances. It'll average out later on. But it just depends. It depends what those chances are, how they're getting them, and essentially just to add some context to what the stat says. When I've seen a few Blackpool games, just on highlights, I thought they could have been in certain games two goals up and just didn't take those chances, and the other team did, which happens.
Yeah.
And speaking of a player, I really think you missed CJ Hamilton. He was the player I really noticed in the reverse fixture.
Yeah, he's been a big miss, hasn't he, Tom? And one that you tweeted before, I think. And so I can't remember what the emoji was or the actual tweet itself, but he liked it, and he'll be buzzing to get back inside the dressing room, I would have thought, and back on the pitch, because, like Fred just said there, he's an exciting player that can create things out of nothing.
He's he's someone where if he's out, you think, CJ's out, but I think we really, really miss him this season because Bez and Kai haven't been, they're nowhere near the player he's in terms of how they play, because they're more of I like to say Kaikai's more of a tricky winger and he likes to get in at players, but he hasn't been that player this season apart from the last couple of weeks. So Hamilton will just run at players because he knows he's got the pace to beat them. And there's a sort of player when we're back in the stadium that puts us on the edge of our seats. We're standing up, ready to create an opportunity. So when he's back, it's going to be great because he's back in full training as well. So wouldn't be surprised if he's on the bench tomorrow just for a bit of sort of morale boost and sort of CJ's back sort of thing, get the squad sort of boosted for it. We'll see. But the fact he's back in full training with the team means he's not far away at all. So yeah, exactly what Matt's put. Pace kills defences as well, and we really missed that.
Back four, especially with Portsmouth's back four.
Yeah, you remember that
was the main thing from the reverse fixture I mentioned. It was on Sean Raggett's side. Sean Raggett's a very good centre half in terms of dealing with crosses and man marking a player. But if you have a player like Hamilton running at him, dribbling at pace, who can take on players, he's not going to do very well.
If you remember the goal, Robson hasn't played again through injury or COVID. Can't remember now, but he hasn't played too much. But Robson plays one of the passes of the season so far, just behind the defence to allow CJ to run onto it, and he's already gone before the defenders noticed the pass. And that combination of a killer ball to the wing just really hurt. And again, he's done that at Peterborough as well. If you remember, we scored the winner against Peterborough. He plays a perfect pass across goal. Dean gets it, slots it away, and Keshi's done the same against Portsmouth. But just to touch upon Portsmouth this season, Marquise has obviously been a massive outlet for you. I don't know how much he's contributed to the expected goals, but I think one thing we noticed when we stopped Marquise, we stopped Portsmouth sort of having that real outlet. So how he's obviously been in form recently, how do you think he's sort of going to have an impact on your season, should I say?
Marcus has had a very good season. Compared to last season, I was very frustrated with how he was used. Portsmouth played a 4-2-3-1 and basically treated him like a target man. And you can only look at John Marcus and think that's not how you use that sort of player. Sometimes he played in attacking midfield, if you want another thing to laugh at. So Portsmouth are playing a lot more to his strengths now, with the fact that they're just looking for killer through balls from wide areas, but also from the centre of midfield. But when they get panicky, they do resort to the long ball a bit, which has been Portsmouth's Achilles heel for about three seasons. In terms of goals, 12 goals, 4 assists this season is excellent for John Marcus. At this point, just over halfway through the season, he's already surpassed last season's totals already.
Yeah.
But I will retract on the fact that it's not the case of simply stopping John Marquis if Portsmouth are set up properly. If they're set up with that aggressive 4-4-2, which I think they should go for this game simply because it's their best setup and formation. It's not my preference of football. I don't mind how Portsmouth play as long as it suits the side that Portsmouth step at. As long as it suits the side that Portsmouth have and the players we have, I don't mind if they play long ball or not, or certainly. But yeah, if you have John Marcus up front, Ryan Williams, very attacking, tricky winger, playing the season of his life. You could have Marcus Harness next to him, a very, very tricky winger who could also play attacking midfield, who's very comfortable on the ball, can create that bit of magic with certain shots. Ronan Curtis, who cuts in from the left-hand side and is very aggressive in the dribble. And even from centre midfield, you've got Andy Cannon, again, a very aggressive centre midfielder, high pressing, loves to tackle, but also wins the ball high up the pitch very often. So Portsmouth have a lot of outlets to score from. I mean, 45 goals a season. Marcus has only scored 12 of them.
12, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking through the stats. Curtis, 6 goals in the league. You've got Michael Jacobs on 2. Around that, Tom Naylor's 5 from midfield, which is a good return from him. And then what more to...
A lot of them were long-range strikes simply because he was given a bit more freedom sometimes because he has a player like Andy Cannon next to him who covers a lot of ground and they can cover for each other. I don't think Andy Cannon will start, though. I think there'll be a change for that, but I assume we'll come on to formations and players who'll be picked later on.
Yeah, we'll come to that one. Let's move on to kind of a feature that we do is games between the two sides. A look back at games and memories. So anyone listening and watching this live, if you want to get a game in between Portsmouth and Blackpool at either ground, Fratton Park or at Bloomfield Road, do leave the comment below. We'll read them out. But Pompey, like I said, have had the share of the spoils between the two sides, winning 22 of the 73 meetings, dating back to the first game, which was played in 1924-25 season, where both matches that campaign finished 1 apiece. Blackpool have won 28 times against Portsmouth in all competitions, with there being 23 draws in the process. And Tom, when we look back in terms of games and at Fratton Park, out of the 3 last games that have been played there, Blackpool have gone on to win 2 of those out of the 3. I think the last one, it's gone off my head now. I've lost the page. He's played at Fleetwood, striker. What's he called?
Chris Long.
Chris Long, that's the one. Cheers, saved my life there. Not knowing my facts and doing my research. Yeah, Blackpool have had a decent record down at Portsmouth recently, and hopefully that continues tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we massively need to sort of lay down a marker tomorrow with the running. I think we've got 4 home games out of the 7. Our 7 next games, 4 of them at home, for rescheduled games. And after that, we've got 2 or 3 in a row. So if we win tomorrow and we can pick up sort of a couple of draws or wins on the way, then we start sort of showing how serious we are. So we need to step up tomorrow. Anything less than a draw is not going to be good enough, in my opinion. But Portsmouth will be well up for it after Tuesday.
Yeah, just coming to you, Fred. I don't know if there's any standout games for you. One before we come to you is Gareth again. He just said that bloody FA Cup game at Pompey when we were robbed in the last minute. Back in 2004?
2004, yeah.
Yeah, just reading through here. Sebastian Schmel, is it? Schmel, I don't know how you pronounce his name there, scored the first goal. Scott Taylor just before half-time to make it 1 apiece. And then the Ikubu scored in the 89th minute with Gareth Evans being sent off for the Seasiders.
Really rubbish goal as well. I remember sort of a goalmouth scramble and Ikubu sort of tapping it in, and just a bit of a killer at the time.
Hearing Ikubu's name brings back some memories. He was one of the players I remember most growing up. So that was
Sorry, the game you mentioned always stands out for me, Sam, because do you remember at the time we loaned Long from Fleetwood, and Barton had his choice words about the fact he never got his shirt dirty because he wasn't committed enough, and then sort of his first game comes on as a sub for Blackpool and hits a terrific shot into the bottom corner, and Blackpool fans jump straight onto the Twitter and just talk to Joey Barton about that.
I know in the dressing room or just around we're thinking, how the hell has he gone there and scored the winner at Pompey? But again, a good result for Blackpool.
One of those things.
Yeah, good result for Blackpool that evening. And sorry, Freddie, we interrupted you again there. You're on a roll, aren't you?
In terms of the game that most recently will give you some memories between the sides, the 2018-2019 season, the 2-1 Portsmouth win at Bloomfield Road. I went to that game. Again, particularly strange. It was when the fans were boycotting Oyston for obvious reasons, and the surreal experience of that. But it was also Ronan Curtis's debut. We'd just signed him from Derry City for £100,000, and he lit up that game. Scored 2 excellent goals. The away end was rocking. We were shouting at Oyston and all sorts. It was an excellent away trip.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I guess both are quite nice away trips, and I guess due to COVID, there've been quite a few Blackpool fans who might have made the journey down south. And like I said, Pompey come up in numbers to Blackpool and the Fylde Coast, which is again great for the community and stuff. And it's been the same down there this weekend. The weather's awful in Blackpool this evening, but it would have been nice just to go back to a game. And I guess it's one, Freddie, that we're just all looking forward to, aren't we? Just to get inside the grounds and start supporting our team again.
Yeah, precisely. I'm really missing the away trips, especially, and just being in a football stadium again. It's been a long time. It's definitely been over a year for me. I think my last game was sorry to mention them again. Fleetwood away. What a bad performance that was from Portsmouth last season. I just want to be in a ground again when it's safe, when all the precautions are in, and that's when I think there'll be a greater sense of normality, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, to be fair. Hopefully it comes sooner rather than later, but I'm sure there's going to be a reel of me saying that on the last 4 or 5 shows, and not much has changed really, but the R rate's going down, so fingers crossed we'll be back. But I want to move on to kind of the second to last topic of the evening, which is a little bit about Portsmouth's season this far. Maybe look at a few key games for you, Freddie. But obviously played 27, won 14, drawn 6, lost 7. That's in all competitions this season. What do you make of it so far? 4th in the league table. Teams around you maybe played a game or 2 less / more than yourselves. But can you really put a point on kind of the season so far? Has it been a positive one for you, or one that you thought could have been done better?
I'll try and keep it short. Before the season, everybody was cynical, mainly due to the way that Portsmouth lost to Oxford in the playoff series. The majority of people wanted Kenny Jackett sacked after that game, myself included. It was that bad, and the football that season, even though they were getting results, they were winning ugly a lot, but we all just thought this side's not good enough to win the playoffs. And you can win ugly during the season all you like, but if you don't set up your tactics properly, and the players aren't fully committed in the playoffs, you'll lose anyway. Good signings came in, started dreadfully, in a similar way to last season, played the 4-2-3-1, very direct, created little in every game. One of the highlights was losing 2-1 to Wigan Athletic. We were absolutely appalling that game. Then Kenny Jackett changed his tactics to the 4-4-2. Very aggressive, got the best out of the attacking players that Portsmouth have. Then Portsmouth went on a run with the 6 clean sheets and the games with the 6 clean sheets in a row, beating promotion rivals, Lincoln, Hull City, etc. And it started to get a little bit better. And now it's petering off into so-so performances, playoff form, which a lot of Portsmouth fans didn't think, because the start was that bad. I think it was up until the win against Gillingham in October. That was when they changed the formation. But so before that, 5 or 6 games they played as bad as they were last season, but just not getting the results this time. And I think to sum it up is that there's been a lot of angst between the fans, because they realise how much this season means to Portsmouth. It's a boom or bust season. If Portsmouth don't get promoted out of League One this season, they might not for another 2 or 3 years. I think it's that crucial that Portsmouth get out of this division this season. Even if they don't have the money to fully invest in the Championship, even if they go up and down again, it's better than missing out on the playoffs again. Because I'm sure you've noticed, if you watch a bit of Championship football, the gap between the Championship and League One now is ridiculous in terms of the quality of some of the teams. The only reason why Derby and Sheffield Wednesday are in the relegation zone is because they're poorly run. Just assume that they are, then you'll have the same teams at the bottom at the end of the Championship every season, and that's mainly financial, and it doesn't matter what sort of manager you have. But considering the bad 6 games and how badly last season ended, I'm fairly positive now, mainly because of the tactical changes I've mentioned so many times, and the fact that certain players are playing exceptionally well, and it looked completely different from last season. There's a chance that Portsmouth could get top 2, but I'm not fully confident on it. But there's a chance anyway.
I think Mick's thinking about maybe the Championship. If you've just confirmed that, is it the players that likely to leave, or it might mean if it's the season? Is this the one chance to
in terms of what I mean by boom or bust? Certain players probably will leave. Ronan Curtis especially, because he stayed at Portsmouth this season mainly because he's getting game time every week. He's playing well, and he's in the Republic of Ireland setup. If Portsmouth don't get promoted, he'll look to go to a Championship club where he gets first team football. Another player who might leave, Marcus Harness, very technical player. He can definitely play at Championship level football. Also, I assume presumably the chairman will not extend Kenny Jackett's contract if Portsmouth don't get promoted. So then you have to deal with the whole Blackpool situation. The new manager might come in and want a complete rotation of the squad. Yeah, a complete rotation of the squad, and with 11 players out of contract, it seems like the natural thing to happen with certain players. Even though certain players who have their contracts expiring, Tom Naylor, Jack Watmore, Craig McGilvery, are the spine of the side and are all very good players. And in terms of fan patience as well, for some people, Kenny Jackett lost them after a game against Coventry last season when they were 3-1 up. Coventry had 9 men. Kenny Jackett took off Portsmouth's only striker and put on another centre-back and went 5 at the back. So Portsmouth were 3-1 up, about quarter of an hour to go. 2 men up as well, and drew 3-3.
Wow.
If that doesn't, if that's not a negative substitution, then I don't know what is. And that is the key here. A lot of people who don't look at how a lot of Portsmouth's games, especially last season, they look saying, "Oh, Portsmouth are winning games, I'll be fine." Last season, they weren't playing very well. In terms of that comment, surprised your owners haven't really gone for it. Michael Eisner, essentially, in order to buy the football club, it's run on a self-sustainable model. The reason why, for example, John Marquis, we signed John Marquis for 1.5 million, it's because we sold Matt Clark at centre half and Jamal Lowe for a combined total of about 6.5 to 7, to give you an idea. So, as much as a lot of people say Portsmouth like to splash their money around, they can do in terms of their wages, but also because they get 18,500 through the gate at home. But they're not doing it unsustainably. They're not doing a Sunderland and spending and giving Aidan McGeady, God, no, I don't want to know what Aidan McGeady's wages are. But that gives you some idea, and that's why this season is all in or bust for Portsmouth.
Do you think, in some respects, sorry to interrupt, Freddie, do you think sometimes obviously salary cap was in at the start of the season due to COVID, which I fully understand, but in the last few weeks it's been kind of scrapped. Do you think that's maybe had an impact on how Pompey would have spent money this year round, that they've maybe not had the investment or the cap stock from investing in different players?
In terms of the salary cap, Portsmouth have been at the top end of it since the summer. And it stopped them from buying as many players as they would have done. It was put in with good intentions for me, but I'm sorry, a salary cap in the Football League doesn't work. I'm sorry. I don't see how you can ask Portsmouth, especially since it's not for the entire pyramid. I'm sorry, you can't ask Portsmouth to spend the same amount on player wages as Accrington and Stanley, yet Portsmouth get 18,000 average attendance every home game. I'm sorry, you can't. In terms of what they've gone to now, I understand why a lot of chairmen are pissed off with the old system, because essentially you can game it. So I think it was based. You can only spend like 60% based on turnover, but you could also add an amount of money. Say, we expect to sell this player, so we can add this money, and also chairmans can not be self-sustainable and just use basically their back pocket instead of the money generated from the club. So there's a lot of issues with it, but there was also a lot of issues with a tight salary cap, which if they had it for 2 or 3 seasons, you'd see a lot of yo-yo teams between Championship and League One, because obviously they can't compete, and also Championship clubs got an advantage because they average out their wages and they're paying more, and etc. So I think that needs to be completely back to the drawing board. I think they need to rethink all of that.
No, I completely agree with you. I think teams who, again, Accrington have done well. I don't know if that's due to teams not spending enough money and Accrington being really good. I think it's a mixture of both, really, that they are flying at the moment, but teams haven't had the money to invest. So we'll knock that topic on the head, because it could be all night. Just looking before we go into the manager interviews quickly and the score predictions. I know you've got a busy night this Friday. So the running, obviously, Blackpool, Oxford, Gillingham, Doncaster, Sunderland, Peterborough, Ipswich, Northampton in between those fixtures as well. You couldn't really ask for a tougher running, could you, Freddie?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but that shows the difference between if you're an automatic promotion team or not. Mm-hmm. So it's what Portsmouth have to deal with. There's no luck involved. There's no there's no luck involved. You just have to get the wins in, playing the way that the team is set up to do that. No more ugly wins, because if you get those ugly wins but don't get automatic promotion, you'll easily get found out in the playoffs, which Portsmouth fans have known for 2 years.
Tom, your thoughts on that running there? Again, hopefully Blackpool can put a dent in their playoff/promotion push, but Oxford flying at the moment. Gillingham, they're picking up results against teams. Doncaster drops a few points in the last few games, but are still up there. Sunderland, Peterborough, Ipswich. It's going to be tough for Portsmouth if they're going to get up there, but if they can keep the defeats to a minimum, you've got to fancy their chances of going up this season, haven't you?
It's a season deciding, in my opinion. I think you've just said the teams that they're playing, if they win, they eventually go above Portsmouth, and same with us. You know, we take full advantage of our home sort of form with the run in, and if Portsmouth come out of that with 3 or 4 defeats, then you can probably kiss automatic and potentially even playoffs goodbye. Win 4 of those 6, then you've got to be gunning for top 2. So see what comes at the end of that run-in. But League One's weird this season, isn't it? Like Accrington, we're sleeping on Accrington a bit, and you said I don't know if teams have been bad. I generally think they've been terrific. They're resolute. And
it's just the standard in this league this season has been very good.
Yeah, they've got incredible players. It's a bit like when Blackpool clicked, the perfect 10, etc. Just go into every game believing you're going to win, and players have talked about that in the past. And if you haven't got that in your team, then you're not going to get promoted. And Accrington have got that at the moment. They've got 2 or 3 games in hand. They're in the playoffs, so all credit to them. They've been, run really well, and it's just their year of, gelling. Maybe it's a combination of a few things, but I think this next 5 or 6 games for about 5 teams in this league will decide around about the playoffs, in my opinion.
And Freddie, I've got to come in here. 2 of the last 3 games are against Accrington. Away on the 27th of April on a Tuesday night, then away at Wimbledon on Saturday, and then May the 8th at home to Accrington. Those 2 games in those last 3 could be pivotal to your season, couldn't they? And theirs, I guess.
Precisely. Yeah, I've watched a fair bit of Accrington, and I don't think it's the salary cap as much. I just think they're a very well run team, and they know how to pluck talent from thin air. Dion Charles is suddenly on a goal scoring run. He looks excellent. They had Colby Bishop from last season. I can name a few more players. Callum Johnson, who Portsmouth signed from Accrington this season, he's been a very good get. And if they keep on, their manager's also very good in terms of their setup. So if they keep doing that, they might get playoffs eventually. They might.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I said they have been fantastic this season. Moving on, because of course your time it flies by when we're having fun on this show. Just looking at what both managers have said, and I'll start off with Blackpool's head coach Neil Critchley. Tom, that the title of this article was "Find a Rhythm and Consistency in Performance," and I'll read some of it now. What he's had to say: we've now got a run of games where we can find that rhythm and that consistency in our performance. That is something that we're aspiring to do. If we can do that, then we've shown already this season that we can beat the best teams in the league. I think that their first few away defeats of the season, when he was talking about Portsmouth, we had to play them well on a night to win that game. We deserved the win at home, and it's shown that we're capable of beating them. What are your thoughts and reactions to Neil Critchley there?
He's spot on, and you go back to the last 10, 15 sort of pods we've done, I've said he always speaks exceptionally well, but what translates on the pitch is not always what he probably aspires to be. And I think I've just said sort of a couple of minutes ago, the next sort of 7 games for me, especially with 4 of them being at home, will show me if we're good enough or not. Personally, hate to say it, but I don't think we're good enough this season to potentially make the playoffs, just through consistency of performance and how much is tinkered with the team and formation. I'm not saying he's done a really bad job. At the start of the season, most definitely did, but I think I've slept on it and realised, like Freddie alluded to earlier, the changes is catastrophic in many ways. There's 20 new. I think teams don't sign 20 players in 3 or 4 seasons, let alone 1. But on the flip side to that, I personally believe we do have enough quality on the pitch and in that squad to push for the playoffs. So hopefully his message is getting through, and hopefully we start putting some runs together. Now would be the spot on time to kind of run like we did pre sort of those 2 games at Christmas being postponed due to COVID. And putting that run together of 8 out of 9 wins, 9 out of 10 wins will put us right up there with sort of 10, 15 games to go. So there's still a massive way to go this season. So hopefully he's getting through to the players and he's finding his feet a lot more.
Yeah, he does sound a lot more relaxed and confident, doesn't he, in interviews? So, again, as a new manager coming into it, he definitely needs to learn the role. And unfortunately, with the fans that we are, obviously, other clubs are very demanding and want to see us do the best. And I do hope we've turned a corner, and hopefully we can see a bit of a running towards the end. Obviously, the assistant manager, Joe Gallen, Freddie, he said he expects to see Portsmouth back to their best when they welcome Blackpool on Saturday. A sloppy defensive display, which you've alluded to, but he says we're back at home and it's an opportunity for us to get a result, but we still have to pick out the positives and negatives from the last game. The main thing to look at is conceding 3 goals, and we need to return to some basics, and that just comes down to defending. Is that something that you agree in terms of just get back to basics and pick up the 3 points and move on?
Oh, absolutely. If those defensive calamities didn't happen against Bristol Rovers, Portsmouth would have won that game. And if they took their chances as well. Yeah, I do agree with Joe. Keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate it. They changed the formation on Tuesday to try and adapt to the opposition, which sometimes works. But I think just put out the best team that whatever shape that suits the players the best and the players in those roles. That's what they should go with. I don't think they should spend all their time looking at Neil Critch's tactics and obsessing. Oh, should we play a 5-man midfield because X, Y, Z? Just go with the best side and the best players.
Yeah, he's also gone on to say sorry for coming on. We'll be looking to get back to winning ways, but we know that Blackpool are no mugs. They're a good side and are difficult to score against. They've only conceded 26 goals in the league this season, which is pretty good going, and they also have attacking threats. So that's the words of Joe Gallen there. And if you want to listen to more, head over to Portsmouth's website and you can see all the stuff going on there. I don't know if someone was going to say something before I interrupted or not.
Me, yeah.
Oh,
I was
going
to say, sounds familiar with wanting to focus on yourself and not the opposition. We've done that too many times this season, which is why I think we've lost too many games. So it'd be nice to see us focus on that 4-4-2 tomorrow and match them formation-wise, and may the best team win.
No, if both sides go 4-4-2, it would be a very good game to watch, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think the last game was interesting, wasn't it? Both of you, I guess, for more the same, and Blackpool pick up the 3 points. It'll be a nice Saturday evening for us all, won't it? Sorry, Freddie.
Of course.
We'll finish off with score predictions. So if you've just seen the comments in whatever platform you're watching on, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, do leave them in below. Few people have got the teams in, which is great. We can touch on that if people want to, but we'll stick to kind of some of the things. But Blanchett _3 says it's going to be a tough game tomorrow for both teams, but I'm going to predict a 2-2 scoreline. And Jake's also gone for 3-0 to Blackpool, which is very ambitious. But Tom, I know it won't be 3-0 to Blackpool on your score prediction, so let's hear it. Let's hear it.
2-1 defeat. I think Portsmouth will come prepared for us, and I think they'll want to win after a very sort of poor performance on Tuesday. They'll probably have a bit too much for us. If the Blackpool we know turn up and defensively we're there, I'll go 2-2, but I think tomorrow will prove a bit too difficult for us.
Interesting. I'm just trying to find some comments, but Freddie, you've looked at the stats ahead of this game. You've obviously spoke about Tuesday night's result away at Bristol Rovers. What is your score prediction for tomorrow's game?
I predicted it on the PO forecast earlier this week, and I will stick by. I see Portsmouth going hell for leather in the first half, but I don't trust them defensively, even though Blackpool often waste their chances. If they counter-attack Portsmouth really well, I could see Portsmouth conceding goals, so I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw.
Oh, interesting. That is the same as Ray Gregson as well. Thanks for getting the comments in, Ray, and all the others, which I will read out shortly. What I'm going to think, what I'm going to go for. Might copy someone's in a second. Reading some here. So about formation-wise, Blackpool think they might go for a 3-5-2 tomorrow instead. Mick, he's got a comment saying 2-2 for me as well. Can't see a win, unfortunately, but will be good enough to take a point from home. Richard's got a comment, and he says 2-0 to the Seasiders, Virtue and Yates getting on the score sheets. And I'm going to go with Steve on this one. I think it's going to be a draw, a 1-1 draw, with Yates getting the goal for Blackpool in that game. Gareth's got a comment in saying a 2-0 win for Blackpool. We will win 2-0. I'm going to go to the bookies and put that one on you, Gareth. If not, you owe me a pound for what I'm going to put on. Tim Fielden, he says a 2-0 defeat. We'll keep reading through a few others. Josh says 1-1. Quite a few draws here, Freddie. I'm quite surprised, really. I thought there might be a few more people going for a Portsmouth win.
No, I think going for a draw is fair, considering how Portsmouth have been doing recently, and I think Blackpool are an underrated side. Personally,
definitely. Matt, who you will probably see on the podcast tomorrow, Blackpool seem to be a lack of. Sorry, I can't read that. Sorry, Blackpool seem to have a knack of playing better against the so-called bigger and better teams. At a point, will be a good result going for 1-1. People think Marvin Ekpateta will be a big miss tomorrow. I certainly agree. And then Richards finished off with a 2-2 draw. 50% of the calls into, I guess Richards actually works on the radio, so Express FM, the Play at Pompey crowd. That's a great chant, that, isn't it? Play at Pompey. I've been a few times and I've heard it actually echoes around the ground and the local community. Which
I miss hearing that. I miss hearing that.
We were trying to get the guy with the bell on, but we had to suffer with you for an hour. Sorry, Freddie.
John Westwood, what a character!
Great to speak to him. I think he did a lot before we finish. A bit of a short documentary about obviously growing up and supporting Portsmouth and the reasons why he got used as known as the bell ringer. It's quite interesting. I'll have to find a link and I'll put it on my Twitter. But it's a fascinating watch, to be fair, and what a guy. I'm sure he's suffering from not watching football, to be fair.
God, it's life. So I still find it funny how his day job, he runs a bookshop in Portsmouth. So yeah,
and on a Saturday he's the bell ringer.
I still find it very strange that he goes from all suited and booted in a proper high-end bookshop to what he's like in his clown boots and high hat on a Saturday and Tuesday.
Two different personalities in it. Can I help you with a book? Come on, Pompey! Must be. Can't imagine how he switches from that day job to God knows what he's like on a Tuesday night game after a full day in the bookshop. Who knows? But we'll finish there. The show. It's been obviously great to have so many people watch us live, and I'm sure plenty will listen to the podcast ahead of tomorrow's 3:00 kickoff. But Freddie, from myself and Tom and the rest of the Seasiders podcast, it's been great to have you guys on, and a pleasure to deal with you, obviously behind the scenes, getting you on the show. So a huge thank you for that, and wish you all the best for the rest of the season.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on, and good luck to Blackpool for this season and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. A few nice comments coming in. You might be able to read them on the screen. I can't do two things at once, to be fair. And Tom as well. It's been great to have you on the podcast again. And will you be joining us tomorrow in the post-match? Yeah, in the post-match show.
If I can, I'm at work, so I'll be watching the match on my lunch break. But we'll see if I can get onto the reaction show. If not, I'll be listening on the way home.
No, definitely, it's been great, and all the comments are flying in. I'll put them on the screen briefly to finish off the show. But again, a huge thank you to all the listeners and watchers. It's fantastic to have you on the show and have your input. Sorry if we've not answered or put your questions out there. It's just a matter of time, and I get told off after an hour and 15, which is the case this evening. So I'm going to put you guys off the screen now, and just want to say a huge thank you to everyone watching the show. We'll be back tomorrow, I think 6 p.m. for the match reaction show with John and the rest of the gang. So stay tuned for that on social media. And if you want to have your say, join us on the live stream to get your comments in, or even ask and get on your show yourself. You don't have to be on camera. You can just have a picture if you don't want to do that. So a huge thank you again. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because any show that goes live, you will be notified. So, and also give it a thumbs up, because that just shows YouTube that we're doing our jobs at the end of the day. But from me, we're going to leave it there, but hopefully Blackpool can go and pick up 3 points on the road again at Pompey. Good evening.